Today, we are going to test and review the brand new Adobe Premiere Pro no-stitch editing extension for the Insta360 Pro users. This is a very innovative proxy approach for 8K or 6K 3D 360 video editing and can potentially save you lots of time. But the question remains, should you use it? Or how is this going to affect your current injection workflow? Let's find out.
Hey, what's up everybody, it's your boy Hugh here from Creator Up. So before we test and review the brand new plugin from Insta360 Pro for Premiere, we are gonna review the old Proxy Workflow I introduced in couple tutorial back, so you can have a clear workflow comparison. First, transfer your footage from your hard drive to SSD or an RAID 0 drive, so pretty fast write speed. And then I usually don't use the Insta360 Pro Stitcher. I prefer to use the Mistika. So go ahead and open Mistika. So Mistika is open right here. You drop in 6 lens profile into the Mistika window and go ahead and hit stitch. Use the Insta360 Pro calibration and then go ahead and calibrate your footage into stereo. And then go ahead and pick your in point and out point. Go ahead and match color in time, and then you go ahead and render. If you want more information how to use a Mistika to stitch Insta360 Pro footage, I have an entire tutorial. The very important step on the old workflow is render. So here, I'll go ahead and hit here, File, Render. For low budget or personal project, I usually just go ahead and use the MP4 NVIDIA movies. Again, you don't have this option if you're on a Mac, so Mac, you probably pick the ProRes QuickTime ProRes. And then in the codecs, I usually pick either the first one or the second one QP. For Insta360 Pro footage, the first one is enough. Open config right here, and you can pick the bitrate. So for Insta360 Pro footage, if you don't have a lot of movement, 100 usually is good enough. And then go ahead and pick the stereo top and bottom. Make sure you have audio. And then you can go ahead and render the footage. So this is actually pretty good for Facebook and YouTube delivery. If I have a pretty high-end client job and I need to go through a lot of special effect paths and rotoscoping and a lot of complicated work, I would usually pick the image sequence, and I would usually pick DPX. 10 is actually fine because for Insta360 Pro, they don't produce 16-bit. Sometimes for save space, I also use PNG 8-bit, again top and bottom, and render them out. This one will not have audios, but that will be the master pass. And then beside that, I will also render a NVIDIA movie, just the same setting we had before as a reference footage. So let the director to go through the reference footage to pick which clip they're gonna use, and then I would use that image sequence in post-production to do final fine stitch, rotoscoping, and cleanup. So this is my workflow on the Mistika part. So after render, we go back on Premiere. So we go ahead and import the footage. That is the NVIDIA render from Mistika. And you go ahead and drag it and create a timeline. Just go ahead and make sure, because it have meta already, but to be safe, just make sure your project setting is correct. Stereoscopic Projection equal rectangular, stereoscopic over and under, and then as you see, you will see stereoscopic right there. Again, you will not have this turned on because you haven't have any proxy yet, so this is actually the 8K resolution footage. As you look, the resolution is actually very high. Sorry, that's actually 6K top and bottoms. And then the next step, actually, we can go ahead and try to play this to mute that. And pay attention to the drop frame indicator. So it's a little bit glitchy, but it still have a pretty smooth playback. In general scenario for Insta360 Pro footage, I don't even need to use proxy. If you can drop down to 18, let's go ahead and play that. You still have drop frame, but as you see, it's already have very, very smooth playback already. So why can we have such a smooth playback in even 8K footage? As you see, if you look at the window here, it's 6K times 6K because we render out using the NVIDIA codecs. If you want to read more about what is NVIDIA video codecs, you can go ahead and go into the official NVIDIA website to check out their codecs. They have this special ability to leverage the GPU render instead of CPU render. So Premiere can really leverage this like encode and decoding and have a pretty smooth playback. So that's why I really highly recommend intermediate codec using the NVIDIA render, so you will have a pretty enjoyable editing experience. But again, if you want an absolutely smooth playback, so this will be actually a green dot, not job frame. The next step you will do, let's assume that this is actually not an Insta360 Pro footage, it's a footage from maybe the eHalo, maybe the Candle Obsidian, maybe the Zcam. So you will actually create a proxy. Again, I have a full proxy workflow tutorial already on my YouTube channel, so definitely go check that one out instead. And then come back, go ahead and right click that footage, and right here hit proxy, create proxy. And I already have a couple proxy preset right here, so I will basically pick the stereoscopic proxy preset. My proxy is actually pretty high resolution because I have a pretty beefy machine as well. So we'll have a 2K times 2K DNx HR and hit OK. And then we'll pop Adobe Media Encoder, and in the background, Adobe Media Encoder will generate a proxy file right here. It's just finished. And then we'll directly attach to this video. So if I turn on proxy right here, toggle proxy. How do you know if I'm attaching a proxy? Go ahead and hit here, go to detail view, and then just hit the tilde key on your keyboard, open this up and right click anywhere. So meta display, so right here, go ahead and toggle open the Premiere Pro project metadata and go ahead and find proxy and check the proxy window, and then also check the proxy location, the proxy file path, and the proxy media file name. You go ahead and hit OK, and as you see, proxy is attached. So go ahead and hit tilde key to bring back the full window. So now you know this is actually attached with proxy when you toggle the proxy button. And then now go ahead and play that. Now you see actually now we have the green dot, so it's no job frame. So let's actually like even go ahead and do full, go ahead and play that. It's a little job frame, but in a regular scenario, that's actually will be green as well in the proxy, because why not? I'm doing a screen recording and also dragging my GPU resources. So that is why I have to lag it. But as you see, like we had pretty smooth playback even with my screen recording turned on right now. And go ahead and turn on. Look at that. Very, very smooth playback. Doesn't see any job frame at all whatsoever. So this is the entire old proxy workflow. As you see, there's a many steps involved. Now let's take a look at the brand new workflow with the Insta360 Pro importer. So with the importer, I am not gonna even touch Mistika on the Insta360 Pro Stitcher because there's no stitching necessary. What you need to do is go ahead and go to Window and then go to Extension and pick the Insta360 Pro importer right here, as I already picked that, and I dock it into my window right here. As you see, I already import one clip. So go ahead, again, if you do monoscopic, pick monoscopic. If you do stereoscopic, do stereoscopic. And in here, I'm gonna demo stereoscopic, and then go ahead and hit import, and go ahead and pick all the folder right here. Every folder of my entire day of shooting, go ahead and select folder, and then Premiere gonna import all the files. So now as you see, all the file is imported. Great. And again, if you wanna find stitch the stereoscopic footage, you can actually click the gear icon right here, and we open a familiar window just like what you see in the Insta360 Pro Stitcher. And in here, you can pick what kind of optical flow mode you use. I again just leave it as a default, the new optical flow. Sample time, I usually just pick fast. And then when here, preview stitch effect, you can hit that open. It will actually open a really familiar calibration window. So this is the frame the camera picked to as a reference frame. But again, you see there's a lot of people around the camera. It's actually not a good reference frame. So go ahead and drag this. Around here, there's no like visible object near the camera. So that's actually really good reference frame. By the way, that is a sunset in front of the Griffin Observatory in Hollywood Hills. This is really nice footage. It's actually on the roller. Thank you Damon from Gimbal Guru to provide me this really nice roller footage. If you want to check out their roller, go check their website out. I gotta set this frame as a reference frame right here. The auto stitcher, we're actually using that frame right now as the optical flow stitching. So it's good. So go ahead and save that. And go ahead and drag the video file into the new icon. So by default, this button is turned on already, the toggle proxy button. So meaning that we are already using a live proxy. What I say again is a live proxy. What happened in the background is Insta360 Pro is actually using Adobe Premiere to doing a live optical flow stitching of your footage to create that proxy file. So it's actually pretty crazy. Again, right here, I'm still trying to conforming all the footage. So just give me a second to let it finish. So now you just go ahead and pick the in point and out point. That's the frame I need. I'm just go ahead and cut it. So we're done. So right now we can just go ahead and hit in Premiere, render, it's actual export, media. And in here, you can use all the Premiere favor of rendering codecs and even the third party like After codec to generate your 8K or 6K stereoscopic high resolution footage and upload on YouTube, Facebook, Visbit, or whatever platform you use. And in the whole process, Insta360 Pro Stitcher, the plugin is doing everything in the background in stitching. There's no stitching involved in this entire process, which is great and amazing. Or at least that is what it seemed to be. But is this workflow actually really practical to use in your post-production? Let me actually run the test for you. If you go ahead and play this footage, and then you see, you can pay attention to the footage, is really stuck. And again, I'm playing in half resolution. Let's drop into actually 16 resolution. You can go ahead and play that. Even in 16 resolution, it still sees stuck. If you turn the mode, it's very stuck, and you cannot really preview and edit in this environment. It's very frustrated, and that's actually a report from a lot of the viewer actually trying this plugin right now. That is what happened. This is a yellow, and it's dropping frame left and right. The reason why is because I think that Insta360 Pro trying to do a live optical flow stitching using the premium engine, and that is actually very resource intensive. By the way, I have a very beefy machine. My machine is i7 with the CPU, NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti as the GPU, and has 120 GB of RAM. This footage is on an SSD RAID 0, so really fast speed. But with this beefy machine, I still do not have a smooth playback. Now, as you see right here, that is not practical at all with a live stitching. Right now, I'm actually stuck. And if you actually put on full, you look at the footage, it's actually very pixelized. This proxy is actually 960 by 960. It's a very low res proxy. If you actually go ahead and turn on activity monitor and go ahead and pay attention on the GPU and CPU usage, so go ahead and play the footage. It's playing right now. As you see, using around 6 to 7% of the GPU, but the CPU is to the roof. This is not really rely on your GPU rendering. This is actually fully using your CPU. So right now my CPU is hit at 100% on this live optical flow stitching, which is not ideal. I will actually assume they will actually leverage my really fast graphic card, my GPU, to do this live stitching. Compared to Mistika, which is 100% using the GPU, that is a very not a good solution for live rendering or live preview. So if you want to compare that with, let's go ahead and grab the high resolution NVIDIA render we got from Mistika and go ahead and actually go ahead and put on top of this footage. So as the same footage with the proxy attached, so see, we see a very smooth real-time playback right now with my old proxy workflow. Again, compare that with the lower resolution Insta360 Pro Proxy. I'm playing right now. In a quarter, you see like crazy drop frame right here, and it's not a smooth playback. And even in panning, it's a little bit lagging, as you see right here. Okay, this is the Insta360 Pro. And that is the old proxy file. If I actually turn off the proxy, you go ahead and actually look at the original 8K, 6K stereo file. I still get a really smooth playback when now the proxy is off. That is playing a 6K stereoscopic file. I still see a very smooth playback without even using proxy and 6K, because I leverage a NVIDIA codecs from Mistika. Besides rendering speed, let's actually check the stitching quality of the new workflow as well. So here again is the Mistika stitch. As you see, the stereo is really good. There's no vertical parallax. And go ahead and turn this off and take a look at the default stitch right here. Go ahead and you can turn the proxy mode off. So if you turn on the proxy mode, it's actually very pixelized. As you see, you cannot really examine the stereo quality. So turn the proxy mode off. And then if you look at the stereo, it's also very good. So it's actually the stitching quality, as you see right here. It's close up. So you see the stitching quality right here. This is actually close up to the camera. So the stitching quality is identical with Mistika VR. That's actually good because they improved the stitching quality of this new plugin. But the lagging playback speed is make this workflow unusable. So yes, with this brand new workflow, you basically doesn't need to use Mistika, you don't need to stitch, you can immediately drop the footage in the Premiere timeline if you have a laptop and go ahead and preview that and show that to your director and show the final result of the cut, which is very convenient on set. But again, because you don't really get a real-time preview of your Premiere window, it's sometimes better just go ahead and render a proxy file like I did right here. And just show this to director. Why not you actually see like on the corner, we get a green dot right here. And a real-time playback to show director. And that also is necessary for editing. So in conclusion, I don't think this new plugin for Premiere from Insta360 is that practical. It's a great step to the right direction to actually create something like that, but they still need to really leverage the GPU rendering using the GPU instead of CPU to really achieve a real-time render. So before Insta360 Pro, all Adobe can do an upgrade of the plugin to have a smooth render, a smooth playback. I would personally stick with my old proxy workflow, and I would urge you to actually stick with your old proxy workflow as well to have a more smooth playback and better editing experience.
Thank you for watching this review video. I am sure the Insta360 team is working hard to improve the speed and the workflow with Adobe, and it might be an update coming very soon. The best way to keep up to date with the latest development in the 360 VR cinematic industry is to subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, please give me a thumb up. Share this video on Twitter, Facebook, or your favorite social media. Now, go outside and make some amazing 360 content. And I will see you next time.